December 31st, 2009. Forward Operating Base Todd, Western Afghanistan. Life in Golembesky was like living in exile. The days became routine and mundane at best. The cold weather was settling in, now not only freezing our tents at night, but lasting long into the day, until the soft muddy ground in our compound area froze rock hard. The team was lucky enough to have our own mobile generator to provide us heat and electricity. Sometimes it would run out of fuel in the middle of the night and send the temperature inside our tent well below freezing in a matter of minutes, pushing guys deeper into their cold weather sleeping bags to stave off the shivers. Many nights it was a blessing to have radio watch inside the team's Tactical Operations Center, TOC, which was 2 converted shipping containers that had a little bit of insulation in the walls to help trap some of the heat. As bad as we thought we had it with the living conditions at our compound on the FOB, the 82nd Airborne and Afghan soldiers had it far worse, out at the many different posts and checkpoints in the valley. From the mixed group of Italians and Americans who now manned Combat Outpost COP Pathfinder, they borrowed old H-45 fuel drip heaters for warmth inside a small plywood shack. For the men at COP Corvette on the edge of the village of Ludina, burning anything they could find was as good as it was going to get. It didn't take long before they resorted to buying and bartering for firewood from local villagers to keep their small mud house from becoming a meat locker. It was hard to find a reason to complain about our living conditions at the FOB when there were men less than a mile away suffering in silence as the days grew even colder. At least we had access to a hot meal twice a day at the small chow hall the Italians were operating, in an old general-purpose tent across from the 82nd's command center, where my friend Danny worked daily 16-hour shifts. While they were living off of MREs, meals ready to eat, and the occasional hot meal trays that would come out to them via small resupply patrols from the FOB, we were enjoying the opportunity to sit in a warm tent and eat fresh bread the Italian cooks made in a makeshift wood-fired oven they had built in the back from old bricks. As much as life in Golembesky sucked, it could have been worse. In Afghanistan, things can go from bad to shitty in a heartbeat. It was best to just be thankful for what little you had. I still remembered the first time I met Danny in person. It was about the 3rd day into the recovery mission of the 2 missing paratroopers, and our team had just arrived in the valley a few hours before the paratroopers tragically drowned in the river. I had been talking to the continuous stream of aircraft being sent to us for over 30 hours, because at the time I was the only qualified controller in the valley. During a quick return trip to the FOB to get fresh batteries for my radio before heading out on an ill-fated night mission to the north end of the valley, I stopped into the 82nd Airborne's Command Operations Center, COC. In the middle of the room, surrounded by a bank of computers and radios, I saw an Army staff sergeant hard at work. I presumed him to be Barbarian Fires, Danny's radio call sign. Short in stature, hair a mess, empty cans of Coke and notepads filled with grids surrounding him. He looked as exhausted as I felt, but I went over to him anyway and stuck out my hand. He looked up as I told him my name and said, "Hey, I'm the guy on the other end of the radio. Just wanted to introduce myself and put a face to the voice." He shook my hand and said, "Danny, you've been awake for like 30 hours. Damn, man. Welcome to BMG." Since that first introduction nearly 2 months ago, Danny and I had become good friends and continued to work as partners in the same fight. The both of us had become the primary link between our 2 units, even as things began to change in the valley. As for the team, January not only brought us a new year, but also new opportunities to get outside the wire and start operating with our small ragtag group of Afghan National Army, ANA soldiers, that we managed to pry away from their commander, Colonel Ali. The majority of the 10 soldiers we got came from the platoon manning the Akazi school checkpoint and were sheltered in a large tent we were able to get them. Pat and Jack, the team's 2 element leaders, were the primary handlers and dealt with the daily routine of keeping tabs on these guys. I had a lot of respect for Pat, which had only grown during our time in Afghanistan. His mindset and outlook on war was something to behold. I still recalled my first impression of him during the team's pre-deployment training in Nevada a few months prior. I'd only been with the team a short time, and I barely knew its members, but already Pat stood out. Energetic and passionate about all things military, and never too busy to help or explain something. Pat and Jack were both Force Recon Marines that had been reassigned to MARSOC like many of the guys on the team. Jack was soft-spoken and someone I trusted deeply. We shared a lot of things in common. Same age, married, kids, and an underlying notion that military life had run its course for us and our families. They were both good guys to lean on when things got tough, and I tried to be that for them. We started out slow with our ANA soldiers, a few local foot patrols around the bazaar area, and to COP Pathfinder on the other side of the valley. It was just to see if they could handle the basics, being ready to go on patrol on time, keeping their weapons operational, and having all of their gear, basic stuff, the things Marines learned in boot camp. Most personal gear like socks, boots, and jackets would be traded to locals for food. We kept the ANA soldiers inside the security area at first. The last thing we wanted was to get them into a firefight right off the bat. There would be plenty of opportunities for that. Building trust and confidence is the hardest and most important piece when working with an indigenous partner force. If they were going to respond well and be useful during a firefight, the Afghan soldiers needed to know that they could rely on us to be there for them. This was a task that was better left to the operators like Pat and Jack. My specialty was talking to aircraft, which I hadn't done since leaving Objective Pathfinder. It's an art form, a perishable skill if not used. The highlight of my days now consisted of our weekly airdrop of supplies, usually happening well after midnight while the rest of the FOB was asleep. I wasn't really controlling them, merely babysitting and passing along basic information like wind speed to the aircraft before clearing the release of the payload. The field between the FOB and the large foothills on the west side of the valley was used as a drop zone. The only thing that made getting up at 0200 to receive a CDS, Container Delivery System drop, was the chance to see the amazing canvas of stars on cloudless nights. I would stand on top of the perimeter wall of the FOB with my radio and Peltor headset, waiting for the inbound C-130 cargo aircraft to break the radio silence and establish communications. The night sky reminded me of camping high in the mountains of Colorado. Absence of ambient light from modern civilization made for a deeper view into space, exposing 20 stars for every one star that you would typically see living in the suburbs or outskirts of a city. Even the cloudy outer band of the Milky Way galaxy could be seen stretching from horizon to horizon. Quiet and beautiful, even as the ice-cold wind penetrated through my jacket and made my cheeks numb. Once again thinking to myself, Afghanistan would be a beautiful country to visit if only everybody wasn't trying to kill you.